do Qadianis, do Ahmadis really have a Khilafah as per the Islamic Sharia definition? And how is the claim that they are the only people with a Khilafah, how does it stand with regards to Islam? And also bearing in mind that actually there's other people who have leaders, single leaders today. So do Ahmadis
Okay.
really have a Khilafah? Do they really have a Khilafah according to the Islamic Sharia definition?
Okay, so let's Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. That's a great question. Let's look at that. So first let's go into definition of the Khilafah in the Sharia, right? So Khilafah is firstly a legitimate political and religious leadership of the Muslim community. It's chosen through bay'ah, through a pledge of allegiance by the people of authority, who we refer to as Ahlul Halli wal Aqd. That just means people of authority. It's bound by the Quran and the Sunnah. So implementing Sharia, defending Islam, ensuring justice and protecting the Ummah. And without these conditions, the claim is not then a Shariah Khilafah. It's just, I don't know, I would say, and forgive me for my language, but it'd just be a cult leader wearing a borrowed title. So, what is the Qadiani claim? They say that after Mirza Ghulam Qadiani's death in 1908, Allah established a system of Khilafah through his successors, and they refer to them as Khalifatul Masih, like with a number. So, Awwal, Thani, Thalith. Right now, I think they're at Khamis. Um, and they use a hadith, so like the one from, Sahih Bukhari about prophethood, and then Khilafah on the pattern of prophethood, ala minhaj al-nubuwah, to justify their institution of Khilafah, like their version of it. But here's a problem, right? Their Khilafah is based on false prophethood. Since Mirza himself was not a prophet, as in the foundation is faulty, then any succession after him also then has no legitimacy. So their quote unquote Khilafah is no different from the leader of any other deviant sect, for example, like Baha'is, Nation of Islam, Ismailis, etc. All these who rallies their followers around some figurehead. So, and then when we talk about the hadith about leaders, there's the hadith of Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman. It's Sahih al-Bukhari 7084. It's a very lengthy hadith, or considerably lengthy. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he warned of rulers who are the callers to the gates of hell. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he commanded the companions radiallahu anhum to stay with the truth and the righteous group, even when false leaders pop up. So this shows us clearly that not everyone who bears the title of leader deserves to be obeyed. Like obedience to that person doesn't always match up. And so um, the criterion as it is righteousness and obedience to the Sharia. So a ruler who calls to innovation, who calls to falsehood or misguidance, is not the Khalifa the Hadith is referring to or praising. Rather, it's that person is somebody who needs to be rejected. And another thing that is I feel is important is that the righteous group will always remain up until the day of judgment. So a key Sunni belief is that Rasulullah SAW said, a group of my ummah will always remain manifest on the truth, unharmed by those who oppose them until the command of Allah comes. So this means that there will always be a righteous group upholding Islam, right? We refer to that group as the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, which has carried the Quran, the Sunnah, and Ijma' throughout history. And deviant groups like the Qadianis and the Ismailis, etc., they cannot make the same claim because their foundations are outside of Islam itself. And so, to answer your question now, do Qadianis have a Khilafah? The simple answer is no. I would just say they have an internal leadership structure, but by Shari'i definition, it's not considered a khilafah. The entire claim collapses because it's built on a false premise, which is their false prophet. So a false foundation cannot produce a legitimate succession. So their so-called khilafah is no different from the Catholic Church having a pope, the Ismailis having a Aga Khan, or any other cultic leader. It definitely, doesn't constitute a Shari Khilafah. The Qadiani leadership, I would say, is a counterfeit Khilafah, just like many other cults that exist today.
Yes, subhanallah.
Yes.
So people like the Ismailis, you brought them up. They have their own leader, and they have the same numbers
And
as you guys, as the Ahmadis, like 12 to 15 million. That's their official numbers. Well, that's their numbers that are publicly available, 12 to 15 million, and they have their own imam. They supposedly say is a descendant all the way to from Rasulullah. I think there's other groups as well. Sufis, or some Sufis also have their own people, leaders that they follow, they give bay'ah to, and they follow them. So anybody can claim to be a Khalifa. It doesn't make them one just because they claim to be. That's what they should understand. That and there is no condition in Islam that the Ahmadis come up with, that if there is a false Khalifa, like anybody who claims to be a Khalifa, that Muslims must follow. No, if there is a righteous Imam, there is a righteous leader upon the Ma'an alayhi washabi, and then yes, Muslims should stick to this Imam. But if there is none available, the hadith is very clear that you leave all these groups, even if you have to go to the jungle and eat the roots of the trees. Remember, even if, it doesn't mean you must go. It doesn't mean, oh, okay, just because there is no righteous leader of the Muslims, that you must go to the jungle. No, this is what the Qadianis like to play. They say, oh, since you guys don't accept the Ahmadi Khalifa, you should go to the jungle. No, the hadith says even if you have to. Let me try and get that hadith.
yes, yes, inshallah, Brother Nabil actually mentioned this hadith. So I want to mention this, and this is a very how precise the hadiths are. And Nabil bhai, correct me if I make a mistake, right? So
Sure,
the Prophet
sure.
Muhammad ﷺ said that the nabuwa is within you, mashallah, as long as that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically wants, right? And then he
Hmm.
says, وَتَكُونَ خِلَافَةً عَلَى مِنْحَاجِ النَّبُوَّةِ. That then there be, after that, what will proceed is the Khilafah on the way of the Prophet Muhammad SAW, on the way of the, and we know that that is the Khulafa Rashideen, right? And then
Hmm.
will be Mulakan Adan, right? Would be
Yes.
the Malik, which is Aden. What is the precise translation of Aden?
One, like, it actually just means chewing, but that's not what it means here.
Okay,
It just like
harsh, hard.
yeah, like a strict you could say strict kingdoms,
Yes,
kingship.
and then will be Mulkan Jabariya, the forcing, coercing,
Yeah,
uh, uh,
tyrant kingship.
tyrant kingship, and after that would be Khilafatun ala minhaj nubuwa, right? So basically, where is the prophet in the middle? Because they added a prophet, and then the Khalifa actually extend from that prophet. Do you understand? So my question always is, it tells us about four different phases. One, Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was within them. Then was the Khulafa Rashidin. Then were the harsh kings, and then there was kingdoms which are coercive or tyrannical, and then it'll return a time of a khilafah that is just like the khilafah that was muttasil, was connected to the time of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? But where is the prophet? Shouldn't it also be that there will be a time of a prophet in there, if I'm correct, if they claim that this is the pattern they're following?
Yeah, but they don't have that. They're inserting something into this.
So that's the thing. They cannot use this hadith as evidence, because this is exactly what I asked another Murabbi, was that if you want to say that they are, because they claim to be Khilafah min Hajj Nabuwa, right? So my question is that if they want to take this hadith, then they have to show us from the hadith that there's a prophet connected, another prophet connected to the second Khilafah, that is on the path of the Nabuwa. Because for us, this manhaj is of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and they're going to be exactly the same as Khulafa Rashidin, right? In terms of in terms of their governance, right? If my understanding of the hadith is correct, Nabi.
Yes.
Yeah, so they need to show us in the hadith, so that doesn't stand. Umar, do you have your hadith?
Can you repeat that, Ahmad?
You went to bring a
Allah.
hadith to show us. Do you have that?
Yeah, it's ready. It's ready. Yeah, it's ready. It's ready.
Okay, inshallah.
Okay, let me share the hadith. I wanted to point out that when they tell you that no, because you guys don't accept Ahmadiyya, because the response we give them is that, well, the hadith is saying that if there is no righteous leader, you don't have to join them if there is no righteous leader. Just because Mirza Masroor, who cannot even read Quran, says he's a Khalifa, does not mean we follow him. It has to be, the hadith is very clear that you stick to the group of Muslims and the Imam, the ruler, which means before that it was talking about being righteous. Where is that? Will be there any good? They used to ask about evil, lest I should overtake him. Okay, I say Allah's messenger, we are living in ignorance. Okay, will be there any evil? Okay, let me see. Yes, said there will be some people who will guide others not according to my tradition. There will be some people who will guide others not according to my tradition. You will approve of some of the deeds and disapprove of some of others. He said, will there be any evil after that good? Yes, there will be. And whoever will respond to their call will be thrown into the fire. Basically, there'll be people calling to the hellfire. And if you follow them, this is basically the deviant sects. If you follow them, he said, you'll be thrown into fire with them. Then he said, he asked, Ya Allah, Ya Rasulullah, will you describe them to us? He said, they will be from our own people and they speak our own language. This is understood to be like there'll be basically Muslims. I think they will speak Arabic. So what do you order me to do in such a state should take place in my life? He said, stick to the group of Muslims. This means, of course, the righteous group and their Imam and their leader. He said, if there is neither a group of Muslims nor an Imam, he said, then turn away from all those sects. See, turn away from all those sects. Even if I highlighted there, even if you were to bite the roots of a tree till death overtakes you while you're in that state. So even if you have to go to the jungles, basically, stay away from all the sects. You don't have to join any sect. You only have to stick to upon to what Rasulullah and his companions were upon, which is the Jama'at al-Muslimin and the Imam, the righteous ones, the ones who are upon Ma'ana alayhi wa ashabi, not just any random Tom, Dick and Harry who claims to be a Khalifa, who can't even recite Quran, inna nanu, and keeps combining the ayahs. So we don't have to join Ahmadiyya just because they claim to have a Khalifa. It has to be Muslims, and it has to be the righteous group of Muslims. That the one that, like Mufti Nabeel said, that the righteous group, this righteous group will always exist. Because if they don't exist, then who will pass the correct knowledge? If the righteous group disappeared, then who will be the one to it will go against the hadith, of course, the prophets of Rasulullah, and who will be guiding the Muslims?
It'll go against the Quran too, because it'll be what we term as taklif ma la yutaq. It'll be like, because the regular Muslims would be responsible, legally responsible to, live righteous, pious lives. And if there's no one correct group for them to get guidance from, then, they'd be responsible for something that they can't do. And that's a type of oppression. And Allah would never oppress his servants that way.
And this thing, the thing is that the Ahmadis, they like to ignore, they like to cherry pick from a hadith, like the one we mentioned, like 2937. They just cherry pick parts of it and say, oh, the promised Messiah, the Mahdi or promised Messiah was called a Nabi 4 times. They ignore the rest of the hadith. All those 18 points that Ahmad said, come and explain to us, they ignore all that. The same thing they do with this hadith. they will say stick to the group of Muslims and the Imam, and then they come and say, oh, Ahmadis are the only Muslims that have a ruler, a Khalifa. First, the hadith doesn't say the Khalifa; it says the Imam, which means a leader. So they take this part and ignore the rest of the hadith. That's it. They ignore the rest of the hadith. This is the only part they take.
Yeah,
Well,
subhanallah.
that's the methodology of Mirza Ghulam Qadiani, right? So they're just doing what they're told.